Hi, I'm Lesley Donaldson. Thank you very much for joining me today. And if you're seeing a recording of this presentation, that means I can't step away from the game design conference that I'm at. So I want to expend an extra special thank you to CircuitStream for allowing me to pre-record the presentation for my game design bootcamp capstone project, which is a game called Existence. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm an award nominated writer and author who is currently freelancing in the gaming industry. I've been in publishing for over 5 years and a little over two in game writing. I love games that have deep story. Some of my favorite titles are the Horizon franchise, Assassin's Creed franchise, Detroit Become Human, and the Last of Us series. But I do play video games of all kinds for escapism. Well, why would I need escapism? I have a child with some extra medical needs, and that makes me very much a pro disability advocate. I'm also a wife, and I'm a hobbyist medievalist. Try to say that 10 times fast. And I recently left the emergency nursing field to pursue my creative interests full time. I'm seeking studio employment in either game design or narrative design or game writing. More importantly, I think I'd like to further my connections with people in the gaming industry. Today I'm presenting Existence, a solo project I designed and built within the Unreal Engine. Existence is a linear 3D first-person strategy horror walking sim full of existential dread and cybernetic horror. A lethal game of tag in a maze. But before I tell you about this immersive story world, I'd like to bring you a word from my sponsor. If working from home makes you feel cut off from the world, or if you're just another corporate robot in the workplace, then Existence is your forever home. We provide top-notch residences for all of our employees. These buildings are hexagonally shaped, optimized for hanging out with your friends. Our island facility isn't just a place for you to work, it's a place for you to be taken care of. With the most advanced technology in medical care. We'll look after you forever. There is plenty of room for everyone at Existence, especially you. The inspiration for Existence came from two things. One was a pitch and switch assignment that we did earlier on in our course, where the game design that I had, I wasn't able to see fully come to fruition. And the second is this image from the Unreal Marketplace, and it was from OpenXR Labs. The timeline that I had was from the tail end of March until we were wrapped up in May 21st. And I'd like to tell you about the learning objectives that I've achieved. One of the reasons why I joined the CircuitStream Game Design Bootcamp was to learn a holistic approach towards game design. And this included market research, because that's not something that I did before, even though I was freelancing in the industry. I wanted to improve my understanding of game design theory and put it into practice, especially including accessibility. And I wanted to expand my narrative skills by learning how to improve those environmental narratives and put them into place. I also learned how to apply the use of technology and project planning tools, such as GitHub and agile methodologies and so on. And finally, blueprinting. I had not done any work in a game engine prior to this, and Unreal just blew my mind the amount of things that I could do. I've just scratched the surface with blueprinting, creating levels, creating a soundscape, doing some it's camera and cinematic work and lighting design. I mean, I'm just so amazed at how much a person can do. One of the biggest challenges in designing existence is figuring out how to make it interesting on replay because neither a horror nor a maze are as exciting the second time round because you know what's coming. I'd like to show you how I got around this with a few video clips. One of the ways that I overcame this challenge was by giving the player more agency about their paths. Here, they can either choose to go across this vast hallway of blood and severed heads towards their destination, or they can choose to avoid that mess and go in the tiny cramped elevator that also happens to have bloodstains on the floor. Obviously, the commercial I showed earlier is in-game footage, and it was a more creative way to present the gameplay rather than saying, hey, let me explain to you how tag works, or let me how explain to you what a maze is, as we're all very familiar with that. In creating a game with the intention of there being at least one replay, I have created a maze that the player can change as they're going through by firing these projectable walls. The walls not only block the enemy from catching the player, but they also change the maze space. So there's multiple paths to get through, but one of the reasons for that is because if the player chooses to project a wall, then I need them to have an out to escape themselves. In presenting the player with two ways to get to the main maze, I've also given them a second different maze that they can play before they hit the main. This way, if the player chooses to play a second time and they didn't choose the elevator in the first path, now they've got another maze to go through that is completely distinct and has its own visuals and its own door opening puzzles to solve. And its own horrors, too. Dying and respawning in these kind of games isn't particularly fun. That's why I created a liminal maze that is the space that players are taken to once they are caught, as a way to preserve the primary organic material that the main computer is looking for. In this space, the walls change each time the player's in there, the sound effects alternate, there's different posters on the wall that advertise movies that are never shown, and every movie digs deep into that sense of existential threat. And there was more than one occasion when the engine and I just didn't get along. I'll give you an example. Here we see one of my scary failed cybernetic patrol bots, except it's zooming around the lab and is hardly scary at all. Now, it was the parent, and its child at least knew how to behave. Even slimmed down with all the health points and the hit points taken out, I face challenges on pretty much a weekly basis with the actual moving pieces of the Unreal Engine and how to put this game from vision to reality. But every time something went wrong, that was an opportunity for me to either improve my design or to learn a new skill. Finally, the last challenge that I had was focusing on what exactly it was that I wanted to learn. Because we all know that even after this very extensive course, I've only just scratched the surface of building a game in Unreal Engine. So my takeaway from all of this was streamline. I had some wonderfully horrific mazes built that I didn't actually end up using. Well, I did, but not in the way that you would think. I also figured that in future, when I'm working on a project, it's best that I farm out things that might take me longer to learn, like lighting and cinematics and sound design, in order to get a project completed within a shorter period of time. But overall, I'm quite happy with the project that I completed and the results that I have. And I have to say, I have given at least one of my playtesters a nightmare or two. Well, what's next? I've shown existence to a few very talented individuals, all with specialized skills that are beyond my current level. We're going to work on a prototype that we can put forward in a crowdfunding platform using the plan that I have created as part of the Circuit Stream Capstone project. Now, in other parts of my life, on a personal note, I'm going to take, of course, the information that I have gained and the skills that I have learned and apply them to my freelance work. I'm currently working with a company in Germany and one in France, and they will be the immediate beneficiaries of the knowledge that I've gained. But I also have a passion project that I want to put forward. And that passion project is in honor of my son, who is autistic and has a hard time communicating with others and making friends. So this is an edutainment program, and it's called Verity Heights School Rules. It's meant to provide a place where people who are able to communicate verbally can practice those social communication skills and make mistakes without any fear of bullying or getting things wrong. Once again, thank you for joining me today, and I'm terribly sorry that I couldn't be with you in person. Thank you to CircuitStream for allowing me to pre-record. I'd also like to give a huge shout out and thanks to my instructor, Zain, who's been more than an instructor. He's been a fantastic mentor throughout this entire process, very patient and kind and knowledgeable, and I don't think I could have got through this course without him. So thank you very much, Zain. My name, once again, is Lesley Donaldson. You can find me pretty much anywhere on the internet as @writer Lesley Donaldson or by email at lesleydonaldson@bell.net.